My life didn't end when I found Caleb in bed with his secretary. No, my life ended, and then restarted in the most terrifying way possible. The exact second my thumb hovered over the send button and slipped. I was standing in front of my full-length mirror, wearing a dress that was less of a garment and more of a weapon. It was midnight blue silk and clung to my curves like a second skin, contrasting beautifully against my deep brown complexion. I looked dangerous. I looked ready for revenge. I snapped the picture, typed the caption, "Eat your heart out, loser," and hit send. I thought I was sending it to Monica, my best friend, the only person who knew I was spiraling. But as the delivered checkmark appeared, I looked at the name at the top of the screen. It wasn't Monica. It was Mr. Han K-Town Holdings, the elusive, terrifyingly quiet client whose real estate portfolio I managed, and who I had never actually met in person. The blood drained from my face so fast I nearly fainted. If you enjoy stories where one mistake changes everything, and dangerous romance waits around every corner, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel right now. You do not want to miss what happens next. I stared at the phone, my breath hitching in my throat. "No, no, no," I whispered, frantically tapping the screen, praying for an unsend feature that didn't exist on this messaging app. Mr. Han was my firm's biggest client. He owned half of the commercial real estate in Koreatown, and rumors about him were whispered in hushed tones around the office. People said he was connected. People said he wasn't just a businessman, that the holdings in his company name stood for holding power over the entire city's underbelly. And I, Jasmine Walker, the professional, level-headed property manager, had just sent him a photo of myself looking like a seductress with a caption meant for a cheating ex-boyfriend. My phone buzzed. I flinched like it was a bomb. I looked at the screen through the gaps in my fingers. A reply. Already. My heart hammered against my ribs like a trapped bird. The dress is acceptable. The attitude is intriguing. Bring both to the Monarch in Koreatown. 30 minutes. Do not be late, Ms. Walker. I dropped the phone on the bed. He knew. He knew it was me, obviously, but he didn't fire me. He didn't threaten to sue. He told me to come to the Monarch. I knew the place. It was an ultra-exclusive lounge on Wilshire that we managed on paper, but had never been allowed to inspect. It was strictly members only, the kind of place where politicians and celebrities disappeared to do things they didn't want the paparazzi to see. I dialed Monica immediately. Her voice was groggy. "Jazz? Did you send the pic? Did Caleb see it?" "Monica, I'm dead," I choked out, pacing my small living room, my heels clicking on the hardwood. "I didn't send it to Caleb. I didn't send it to you. I sent it to Mr. Han." There was a silence on the line, followed by a sharp inhale. "Mr. Han? The one your boss is terrified of? The one who pays in wire transfers from offshore accounts?" "Yes." And he replied. "He told me to meet him at the Monarch in 30 minutes. "Jazz, do not go," Monica said, her voice suddenly deadly serious. "You know the rumors. They say the Korean mob runs that side of Wilshire. You can't just walk into a lion's den at midnight dressed like that. If I don't go, I lose my job," I argued, though my stomach was twisting in knots. "He's the firm's biggest client. If I ghost him after sending a photo like that, he'll ruin me professionally. I have to go apologize, explain it was a mistake regarding my ex, and leave. I have to remain professional." "Professional?" Monica laughed nervously. "You're wearing a dress with a slit up to your hip, Jasmine. But look, if you go, keep your location on. If you're not out in an hour, I'm calling the police. And Jazz? Don't let him intimidate you. You're Jasmine Walker. You survived Caleb's trifling behind. You can survive a business meeting." I hung up, grabbed my coat, and checked my reflection one last time. I looked terrified, but beneath the fear, there was something else. Adrenaline. For the last 3 months, since Caleb destroyed my trust and my self-esteem, I had felt numb. Now, driving toward the neon glow of Koreatown, I felt electric. The Monarch was imposing, a black monolith of a building with no signage, just a heavy steel door and a valet stand. I pulled my beat-up sedan up behind a line of black SUVs with tinted windows. A man stepped out from the shadows before I could even turn off the engine. He was Korean, massive, with a scar running through his eyebrow and an earpiece coiled behind his ear. "Ms. Walker," he said, opening my door. It wasn't a question. "Yes," I said, trying to keep my voice steady as I stepped out. The cool LA air hit my skin. "I'm here to see Mr. Han." "We know," the man said. He gestured to the door. "I am June. Follow me. Do not speak to anyone inside." June walked with a lethal grace and I hurried to keep up, clutching my coat tight around me to hide the dress. Inside, the club was dark, lit only by amber recessed lighting and the glow of expensive liquor bottles behind the bar. The air smelled of sandalwood, expensive cigars, and danger. The bass of the music thumped deep in my chest, a low vibration that felt like a warning. We bypassed the crowded VIP section where beautiful people were laughing and drinking, and June led me toward a private elevator in the back. He scanned a keycard and the doors slid open. "Penthouse," June said, pressing the button. "He is waiting." The elevator ride was silent and agonizingly long. When the doors finally opened, I wasn't in a club anymore. I was in a massive, dimly lit office with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the sprawling grid of Los Angeles. The furniture was sleek, dark leather and chrome. In the center of the room, behind a massive mahogany desk, sat a man. He didn't look up immediately. He was reading a file, my personnel file, I realized with a jolt. He was younger than I expected, maybe in his early 30s, with sharp, aristocratic features and jet black hair styled perfectly away from his face. He wore a suit that probably cost more than my student loans, tailored to fit broad shoulders that seemed to carry the weight of the city. "Mr. Han," I squeaked. Slowly, deliberately, he closed the file and looked up. His eyes were dark, devoid of warmth, calculating. He studied me for a long moment, his gaze sweeping from my eyes down to where my coat had fallen slightly open, revealing the blue silk, and then back up. He didn't smile. "Ms. Walker," he said. His voice was deep, smooth, and commanded absolute silence in the room. "You are punctual. I value that. Mr. Han, I want to apologize profusely." I started stepping forward, my hands trembling. The message I sent. It was a personal error. A gross, unprofessional mistake intended for a friend regarding a personal situation. It was not meant for you. I respect our business relationship and... "Take off the coat," he interrupted. I froze. "Excuse me." He stood up then, and the air in the room seemed to get thinner. He walked around the desk, moving with the prowling elegance of a predator. He stopped just a few feet away from me. He was tall, towering over me even in my heels. The power radiating off him was suffocating. "You sent me a photo, Jasmine," he said, using my first name for the first time. It sounded intimate and dangerous on his tongue. "You offered a view. I am simply asking to see the reality. Unless..." The confidence in that caption was a lie. My pride flared, overriding my fear. Caleb had made me feel small. He had made me feel invisible. I wasn't going to let this man, powerful or not, think I was a coward. My hands moved to the belt of my trench coat. I untied it and let it slide off my shoulders, pooling on the floor. I stood there in the midnight blue dress, chin held high, heart pounding against my ribs like a war drum. Han Joon-Seok's eyes darkened. He took a step closer, invading my personal space. I could smell him now, clean rain and something smoky like burnt wood. He didn't touch me, but the heat of his body was overwhelming. "Who is the loser?" he asked quietly, his eyes locked on mine. "What?" I breathed. "The caption," he clarified, tilting his head slightly. "Eat your heart out, loser. Who were you trying to hurt with this dress?" "My ex," I admitted, my voice barely a whisper. He cheated." Han Joon-Seok's jaw tightened. A flicker of something dangerous passed through his eyes. "He is a fool," he murmured. "And he lacks vision." He turned his back on me, walking toward the window to look out at the city lights. "You handle my properties well, Jasmine. You are efficient, smart. But tonight, you have stumbled into a world that does not forgive mistakes. Do you know who I am? Who I really am?" I have heard rumors, I stammered. Rumors are usually watered-down versions of the truth, he said, his back still turned. I am not just a landlord. This city, the Koreatown you see during the day, is a facade. The real city operates at night, and I am the one who keeps it in order. He turned back to face me, his expression grave. By coming here tonight, by sending that photo, you have caught my attention. And worse, you have caught the attention of those who watch me. Watch you? I asked, looking around the empty room nervously. My rivals, he said calmly. They monitor my communications. That photo you sent? It was intercepted before it even reached my private server. By now, the triad and the rival clans in the district think you are my mistress. My mouth fell open. You're what? No. Tell them I'm not. Tell them it was a wrong number. He let out a short, humorless laugh and walked back toward me, stopping inches from my face. He reached out, his hand hovering near my cheek before he tucked a loose curl behind my ear. His fingers were rough, calloused, contrasting with the gentleness of the gesture. In my world, Jasmine, we do not explain. We do not apologize. If I say you are nothing to me, they will kill you just to see if I am lying. To test me. Tears pricked my eyes. So, what are you saying? Am I in danger? You are in grave danger, he whispered. But there is a solution. What solution? I begged. Joon-Seok looked deep into my eyes, and for a second, I saw a flash of possessiveness that made my knees weak. We make it true, he said. You play the part. You become mine. Under my protection, no one will touch you. But once you agree, there is no going back. You belong to the organization. You belong to me. He held out his hand, palm up. Give me your phone, Jasmine. Caleb is the least of your problems now. I handed over my phone. It felt like handing over a piece of my soul. A digital surrender of my privacy, my past, and my pathetic attempts at getting closure with Caleb. Joon-Seok took it without a word, sliding it into the inner pocket of his suit jacket. The movement was so casual yet so final. I was no longer just Jasmine Walker, property manager. I was now an asset, a liability, a target. Good, he said, the ghost of a smile touching his lips. It didn't reach his eyes. June will escort you to your apartment to pack a bag. You have 20 minutes. Do not speak to anyone. Do not answer your door if it rings. June will handle everything. Pack a bag. I asked, my voice trembling. Where am I going? To my home, Han replied simply. My private residence. It is the only place in Los Angeles where I can guarantee your safety until the heat dies down. Unless, of course, you prefer to return to your studio apartment with the flimsy deadbolt and wait for the Giondel, the street thugs, to come asking questions about your relationship with me. The thought made my blood run cold. I'll pack, I whispered. The drive back to my apartment was a blur of neon lights and terror. June drove the black SUV with terrifying precision, his eyes constantly darting to the rearview mirror. When we arrived, he came up with me, standing guard inside my living room while I frantically threw clothes into a suitcase. It was surreal. My cozy, safe life was evaporating. I grabbed my laptop, my favorite hoodies, and the few toiletries I couldn't live without. I hesitated over a framed photo of me and Monica, then shoved it face down into the bag. I didn't want this darkness touching her. When we arrived at Han's private residence, it wasn't what I expected. It wasn't a penthouse in the city center. It was a fortress in the Hollywood Hills, a modern architectural marvel of glass and concrete perched on a cliff edge, isolated and imposing. The gates opened automatically, and we drove up a long winding driveway lined with bamboo. Han was waiting in the foyer when I walked in. He had shed the suit jacket and loosened his tie, rolling up his sleeves to reveal forearms that were surprisingly muscular and marked with a faint, long scar running down his left wrist. He looked less like a corporate overlord and more like a weary king. You look exhausted, Jasmine, he observed, not unkindly. I'm terrified, I corrected him, gripping the handle of my suitcase. There's a difference. Fear keeps you alert. Exhaustion makes you sloppy. Eat. Sleep. Tomorrow we begin. Begin what? Converting you, he said, turning to walk up the floating staircase. If you are to be my woman in the eyes of the underworld, you cannot look like a property manager. You need to look like a queen. The next morning, I woke up in a guest room that was bigger than my entire apartment. The sheets were high-thread count Egyptian cotton. The view was a panoramic sweep of the canyon, and my old life felt like a dream. I found a note on the bedside table. Be ready at 10 a.m. Wear the black dress in the closet. H. I opened the closet door and gasped. It wasn't just a dress. It was a wardrobe. Rows of designer clothes, mostly in blacks, deep reds, and navies. Sharp cuts, expensive fabrics. And there, hanging in the front, was a black midi dress with a square neckline that screamed power. I showered and dressed, staring at myself in the mirror. The dress fit perfectly, hugging my curves in a way that was elegant but undeniably sexy. I applied my makeup, a bold red lip, sharp winged liner. If I was going to play the part of a mafia boss's girlfriend, I was going to look the part. I fluffed out my afro, letting my natural hair form a halo around my face. I wasn't going to hide who I was. If Han wanted me, he was getting a black woman, not a doll. When I walked downstairs, Han was on the phone, speaking in rapid-fire Korean. His tone was aggressive, his hand chopping the air for emphasis. He stopped mid-sentence when he saw me. He slowly lowered the phone, his dark eyes widening just a fraction. He hung up without saying goodbye. He walked over to me, circling me slowly. I held my breath, standing tall. Perfect, he murmured. The hair. Keep it exactly like that. It commands attention. I intend to, I said, lifting my chin. So what's the plan, Mr. Han? Joon-Seok, he corrected. If we are lovers, you cannot call me Mr. Han. And the plan is simple. We are going to lunch. Lunch. In Koreatown. At the busiest, most visible barbecue restaurant on 6th Street. We need to be seen. We need the rumors to be confirmed. The ride to K-Town was tense. Han sat close to me in the back seat, his thigh brushing against mine every time the car turned. The heat radiating from him was distracting. He spent the drive briefing me on his world. There are 3 main families you need to know, he explained, his voice low. My organization controls the real estate and the shipping. The choice control the gambling and the loans. And the triad. They are trying to move in from the San Gabriel Valley. They are the ones who intercepted your photo. They are looking for a weakness. You are going to show them that you are not a weakness. You are my strength. How do I do that? I asked, my hand sweating. By not flinching, he said, taking my hand in his. His grip was firm, grounding. No matter what happens, do not flinch. Look them in the eye. And trust me. We arrived at the restaurant. And the atmosphere changed the moment we stepped out of the car. The valet practically bowed. The hostess went pale when she saw Han. The restaurant was packed, loud with the sizzle of meat and the clinking of soju glasses, but as we walked through the dining room, a hush fell over the crowd. Eyes followed us. Whispers erupted like wildfire. Is that Han Joon-Seok? Who is she? Look at her. She's stunning. She's black? With Han. I felt the weight of their stares, the curiosity, the judgment, the envy. I tightened my grip on Han's arm. He didn't look at anyone. He walked through the crowd like he owned the building, led me to the best table in the back and pulled out my chair. As we ate, or pretended to eat, Han played the part of the doting boyfriend perfectly. He grilled the meat himself, placing the best cuts of galbi onto my plate. He poured my tea. He leaned in close to whisper things that looked romantic to the onlookers but were actually tactical updates. The man at the table to your left, 3 o'clock, Han murmured, brushing a crumb from the corner of my mouth. His thumb lingered on my lower lip for a second too long, sending a jolt of electricity straight to my core. That is the lieutenant for the Choi family. He is recording us. What should I do? I whispered back, smiling like he had just told me a joke. Feed me, he said. Excuse me. Pick up a piece of meat. Feed it to me. Show him that you have access to me that no one else has. Show him I trust you. My heart was hammered. I picked up a piece of marinated beef with my chopsticks, wrapped it in a lettuce leaf with a slice of garlic, and lifted it to his mouth. Han's eyes locked onto mine, intense and smoldering. He leaned forward and took the bite, his lips grazing the tips of the chopsticks. The intimacy of the act was shocking, felt real. Suddenly, a shadow fell over our table. I looked up to see a man standing there. He was older, wearing a flashy suit and a gold chain. He had a cruel smile. "Director Han," the man said in English, his accent thick. "I did not know you had a taste for exotic cuisine." The insult hung in the air, sharp and ugly. The racism was thinly veiled, a direct challenge. I felt my temper flare, the heat rising in my cheeks. Han stopped chewing. He swallowed slowly, wiped his mouth with a napkin and stood up. He didn't yell. He didn't strike the man. He just stared at him with a coldness that was more terrifying than any scream. "Mr. Park," Han said, his voice quiet but carrying across the silent restaurant. "Apologize to my fiance." Fiance. The word hit me like a physical blow. The entire restaurant gasped. "Fiance." Mr. Park stammered, his smirk faltering. I was just joking, Director. You called my future wife cuisine," Han said, taking a step forward. June, who had been standing by the wall, stepped forward too, his hand moving to the inside of his jacket. "You insulted her dignity, which means you insulted me. Apologize, or I will remove your tongue so you can never insult anyone again." Mr. Park turned pale. He looked at me, fear in his eyes. He bowed deep and low. "I apologize, Mississippi. I meant no disrespect. Please forgive me." Han looked at me, waiting. It was my move. "I accept your apology," I said, my voice steady and icy. "Now leave. You're ruining my appetite." Mr. Park scurried away. Han sat back down, his expression unreadable. "Fiancé," I hissed under my breath. "That wasn't in the script." "I improvised," Han said, pouring more tea. "It raised the stakes. Now you are untouchable. No one will dare disrespect you in public again. You just put a target on my back the size of Texas. And I just put a ring of protection around you the size of my empire," he countered. "Eat your kimchi, Jasmine. We have a meeting to get to." The days that followed were a blur of high-stakes theater. I went everywhere with him. I sat in the corner of the boardrooms while he negotiated multi-million-dollar deals, my presence a silent statement. I learned the rhythm of his life, the constant danger, the intricate politics of the Korean underworld, the burden of leadership. And I saw the cracks in his armor. Late one night, about a week into our arrangement, I went down to the kitchen to get water. I found Han sitting at the island, a glass of whiskey in his hand, staring at a tablet. He looked utterly defeated. "Joon-Seok," called softly. He looked up, startled. His eyes were red-rimmed. "I didn't hear you. Is everything okay?" I walked closer. On the screen of the tablet was a news report. A warehouse fire in the port of Los Angeles. "My warehouse," he said, rubbing his temples. "Arson. The triad is escalating. They know I'm distracted. They think my engagement to you has made me soft." "Has it?" I asked, sitting on the stool next to him. He looked at me, really looked at me. The mask of the mafia boss slipped, revealing just a man. "No," he said hoarsely. "It has given me something to fight for. Or, it was just business. Money. Power. Now, when I come home, the house doesn't feel like a tomb. You're here." My heart skipped a beat. "I'm just a guest, Han. A fake fiancé. Is that all you are?" he asked, turning his stool to face me. He reached out and took my hand, his thumb tracing the lines of my palm. "Because when I stood up for you in that restaurant, I wasn't acting. When I see you wearing my clothes, living in my space, I don't want you to leave." The air between us crackled with tension. I wanted to lean in. I wanted to kiss him. The attraction had been building, a slow burn that was threatening to consume us both. But before I could move, his phone buzzed. He looked at it and his face hardened instantly. The mask was back. Go to your room, Jasmine, he said, his voice cold and clipped. Lock the door. What? Why? Because Caleb is here. Caleb. I scrambled off the stool. My ex? How did he find this place? You said it was a fortress. He didn't find it, Han said, standing up and pulling a gun from a hidden holster under the counter. He was brought here. By the police. The front gate buzzer sounded. Han checked the security feed. On the screen I saw a police cruiser in a plainclothes car. Standing next to the intercom, looking smug and terrified at the same time, was Caleb. Stay here, Han ordered. Do not come out unless I call for you. Han, don't hurt him, I said, grabbing his arm. Not because I cared about Caleb, but because I didn't want Han to go to prison for a man who wasn't worth the dirt on his shoe. I won't hurt him, Han said darkly. But I can't promise he will enjoy this conversation. I hid at the top of the stairs listening. Han opened the door. Officers. To what do I owe the pleasure at 2 a.m.? Mr. Han, a detective's voice boomed. We have a report of a missing person. Miss Jasmine Walker. This gentleman, Mr. Caleb Davis, claims you have kidnapped his ex-girlfriend. She's not missing, Han said smoothly. And she's not his girlfriend. She sent me a distress signal, Caleb shouted. His voice grated on my nerves. She sent a photo. She looked drugged. She looked coerced. She looked beautiful, Han corrected. And she is here of her own free will. We need to see her, Mr. Han, the detective said. Protocol. Han hesitated. If he refused, they would get a warrant. If he agreed, Caleb would make a scene. Fine, Han called out. Jasmine, darling, can you come down? I took a deep breath. This was it. The performance of a lifetime. I smoothed my silk robe, checked my hair, and walked down the stairs. When Caleb saw me, his jaw dropped. I wasn't the sad, broken girl he had cheated on. I was glowing. I looked expensive. I looked loved. Jasmine, Caleb cried, stepping forward. Oh my God, did he hurt you? Come with me. The police are here to save you. I stopped at the bottom of the stairs, standing next to Han. I slipped my arm through his, leaning my head against his shoulder. I felt Han's muscles tense, then relaxed as he wrapped his arm around my waist, pulling me flush against him. Save me from what, Caleb? I asked, my voice calm and bored. From a man who treats me like a queen? Unlike you, who treated me like an option. He's a criminal, Jazz. Caleb spat. He's a mobster. You're in danger. The only danger I was in was wasting any more of my life on you, I said. I looked at the detective. Officer, I am fine. I am here because I want to be. Mr. Han is my fiance. Please remove this trespasser from our property. The detective looked between us. He saw the possessive way Han held me, the way I leaned into him. He saw no fear in my eyes, only annoyance at my ex. She looks fine to me, Mr. Davis, the detective said, closing his notebook. Looks like a domestic dispute, not a kidnapping. Let's go. No. She's brainwashed. Caleb screamed as the officer grabbed his arm. He looked at Han with pure venom. This isn't over, Han. You think you're untouchable? The triad knows. They know everything. Han stiffened. The triad. Caleb wasn't just a jealous ex. He had been talking to Han's enemies. As the door closed, silence filled the house. Han didn't let go of me. He turned me around, pressing me back against the heavy wooden door. His breathing was ragged. You were magnificent, he whispered, his face inches from mine. He's working with them, isn't he? I asked, my voice shaking. Caleb. He's working with the triad. Yes, Han said. Which means you are no longer safe even here. They used him to test my security, to confirm you were here. So what do? We stop hiding, Han said. His eyes dropped to my lips. And we stop pretending. He kissed me. It wasn't a gentle kiss. It was an explosion. It was fear and adrenaline and days of pent-up attraction crashing together. His mouth was hot and demanding. his hands tangling in my hair, pulling me closer until there was no air left between us. I wrapped my arms around his neck, kissing him back with everything I had. For a moment, the danger outside didn't exist. There was only this, the scent of sandalwood, the strength of his arms, the rough perfection of his touch. He pulled back, breathless, his forehead resting against mine. "Jasmine," he rasped. "I cannot protect you if you are just an asset. I need you to trust me completely. Tomorrow night is the lunar gala. All the families will be there. The triad. The choice. Everyone. I need to take you. I need to claim you publicly in front of the heads of the families. It is a declaration of war." "I'm ready," I whispered, realizing with a terrifying clarity that I wasn't just saying it for the mission. I was ready to stand beside him. I was falling for the monster in the designer suit. "Good," he said, stepping back, his eyes dark with promise. "Because after tomorrow there is no turning back. If we survive the gala, you are officially part of the family. And if we don't survive?" Han checked his gun, sliding it back into the holster. "Then we go down together." The dress Han chose for the lunar gala was not black. It was red. A deep blood crimson silk that shimmered like liquid fire under the recessed lights of his dressing room. It was a traditional Qipao-inspired silhouette but modernized, sleeveless with a high collar and a back that plunged dangerously low, exposing my skin to the cool air. It was a statement piece. In Korean culture, red could symbolize passion, but in the context of the underworld it was a warning. It said we were not afraid to bleed, and we were certainly not afraid to spill blood. I stared at my reflection. The woman staring back wasn't Jasmine, who filed property tax reports. She was a weapon forged in the fires of the last 48 hours. My hair was pulled back into a sleek high bun, adorned with a hairpin Han had given me. It was solid gold, heavy, and sharp enough to puncture a windpipe if necessary. "It suits you," Han's voice came from the doorway. I turned. He was wearing a tuxedo that fit him so perfectly it was almost criminal. He looked devastatingly handsome, but his eyes were hard. He walked over, fastening a diamond necklace around my neck. The stones were cold, but his fingers were warm. "Remember the plan," he whispered in my ear. "Tonight, the triad will try to separate us. They will use Caleb. They will use threats. They will use the crowd. You must stay in my sight line." "And if I can't?" I asked, my pulse hammering against the diamonds. "Then you use the hairpin," he said, pulling back to look me in the eyes. "And you wait for me. I will burn the city down to get to you, Jasmine. Do you understand?" "I understand," I breathed. The Lunar Gala was held at the Walt Disney Concert Hall, rented out entirely for the Korean American Business Alliance, a polite euphemism for the syndicate of families that ran the West Coast. The moment we stepped out of the limousine, the flashbulbs blinded me. The paparazzi were there, but so were the security teams of rival clans, their eyes scanning the crowd for threats. Han gripped my waist, his hand a solid anchor. We walked the red carpet not as celebrities but as royalty. I felt the stares. I heard the whispers. But this time I didn't shrink. I remembered the lunch at the barbecue spot. I remembered the kiss in the hallway. I wasn't an imposter anymore. I was Han Joon-Seok's partner. Inside, the hall was transformed into a sea of gold and red lanterns. A string quartet played a haunting melody. Waiters moved like ghosts with trays of champagne. "Don't drink anything unless I hand it to you," Han murmured, guiding me through the throng. "Joon-Seok." A booming voice stopped us. It was Elder Zhang, the head of the triad. He was a small man, elderly, leaning on a cane with a dragon head handle. But his eyes were sharp, intelligent, and cruel. Beside him stood a man I recognized from the news, a corrupt city councilman. And behind them, looking sweaty and out of place in an ill-fitting suit, was Caleb. My stomach churned at the sight of him. Caleb looked at me, his eyes widening as he took in the red dress, the diamonds, the way Han's hand rested possessively on my hip. "Elder Zhang," Han said, bowing his head slightly, a sign of respect for age, not rank. "I am surprised to see you. I thought you preferred the shadows of the San Gabriel Valley. The Lunar New Year brings us all together. Zhang smiled, revealing gold-capped teeth. He looked at me. And who is this exquisite creature? The rumors. Fiance. This is Jasmine Walker, Han said, his voice steel. My future wife. Caleb flinched. She's not your wife, he blurted out. She's a hostage. The conversation around us died. The string quartet seemed to falter. Han turned his gaze to Caleb. It was the look of a predator spotting a wounded gazelle. Mr. Davis. I see you have found new friends. Friends who usually dispose of their tools once they are broken. I'm here to get her out, Caleb stammered, looking at me with desperate eyes. Jazz, please. Just walk over here. The police are outside. We have a deal. If you testify against him, you go into witness protection. We can start over. I looked at Caleb. Really looked at him. I saw weakness, selfishness. He didn't want to save me because he loved me. He wanted to save me because his ego couldn't handle that I had moved on to someone more powerful. He was willing to destroy my life, put me in witness protection, strip me of my identity just to win. Then I looked at Han, the man who had protected me, who had empowered me, who had looked at my natural hair and called it commanding, who had told me to eat, to sleep, to fight. I stepped closer to Han, resting my hand on his chest, right over his heart. I could feel it beating steady, strong, rhythmic. Caleb, I said, my voice projecting clearly in the silent hall. I am not a hostage. I am exactly where I want to be. And the only person I need protection from is you. Elder Zhang's smile vanished. He tapped his cane on the marble floor. A touching performance. But business must be discussed. Director Han, a word in private? Regarding the port territories. Han stiffened. He knew it was a trap to separate us. Go, I whispered to him. June is watching me. I'll be fine. Han hesitated, his jaw clenching. 5 minutes, he told Zhang. Then he kissed my forehead. A gesture that felt like a benediction. Stay by the pillar. He walked away with the elder. The crowd swallowed them. I stood by the marble pillar, sipping a glass of water I had watched a waiter pour. June was 10 feet away, his eyes scanning the perimeter. I felt safe. Then the lights went out. Total darkness engulfed the hall. Screams erupted. The sound of breaking glass. June! I screamed, reaching out. A hand clamped over my mouth. A cloth soaked in something chemical was pressed against my nose. I held my breath, struggling, kicking out with my heels. I felt my heel connect with a shin. A man grunted. Grab her legs. It was Caleb's voice. I ripped the hand away from my mouth. Get off me. I reached up, my fingers finding the gold hairpin. I yanked it from my bun, my hair cascading down my back. As the arms tightened around me again, I drove the sharp end of the pin down into the arm wrapped around my waist. The man held and dropped me. I scrambled back in the darkness, my heart thundering. The emergency lights flickered on, bathing the room in a ghostly red glow. I was in the center of the dance floor. Caleb was clutching his bleeding arm. 2 triad enforcers were circling me. June was on the floor nearby, groaning, fighting to get up, blood on his forehead. You stabbed me, Caleb shrieked, looking at the blood on his suit. I'm trying to save you, you crazy bitch. Stay back, I yelled, brandishing the bloody hairpin like a dagger. I swear to God, Caleb, I will aim for the neck next time. Take her, one of the enforcers barked. They lunged. Bang. A single gunshot echoed through the hall, louder than thunder. Everyone froze. One of the triad enforcers dropped to the ground, clutching his leg. I turned. Han was standing on the balcony overlooking the dance floor. He had a gun in his hand, smoke curling from the barrel. He didn't look like a businessman anymore. He looked like the god of war. I told you, Han's voice boomed, terrifyingly calm. She is mine. Behind him, I saw Elder Zhang being held by Han's security team. Han vaulted over the railing, dropping 10 feet to the dance floor with cat-like grace. He strode toward me, his gun trained on the remaining enforcer. Drop it, Han commanded. The enforcer dropped his knife and raised his hands. Han didn't stop until he was standing in front of me. He didn't look at the enemies. He looked at me, scanning me for injuries. Did they touch you? He asked, his voice shaking with suppressed rage. I stabbed Caleb, I said, holding up the hairpin. My hands were shaking, but I was standing tall. A flicker of pride passed through Han's eyes. Good girl. He turned to Caleb, who was cowering on the floor, nursing his arm. Caleb Davis, Han said. You conspired to kidnap my wife. You worked with a foreign organization to undermine my business. And you ruined her hair. Sirens began to wail in the distance. Real police sirens. Not the corrupt ones Caleb had brought to the house. The police are coming. Caleb yelled, trying to find some leverage. You shot a man. You're going to jail, Han. Han smiled. It was a terrifying smile. No, Caleb. You are going to jail. You see, while you were planning a kidnapping, my team was hacking your cloud accounts. We have the emails between you and Elder Zhang. We have the wire transfers where you sold Jasmine's location for gambling money. We have everything. Caleb's face went white. No. That's illegal evidence. I am a criminal, Caleb, Han shrugged. I don't play by the rules. But the FBI agents waiting outside? They love anonymous tips with digital paper trails. The doors burst open. SWAT teams poured in. But they didn't aim at Han. They aimed at the triad members. They aimed at the corrupt councilman. And they aimed at Caleb. Get on the ground, the officers screamed. As chaos erupted around us, handcuffs clicking, rights being read, Caleb crying as he was dragged away, Han holstered his gun. He stepped closer to me, ignoring the SWAT team swirling around us. He reached out and gently took the bloody hairpin from my shaking fingers. It is over, he said softly. Is it? I asked, tears finally spilling over. The triad. The police. Elder Zhang will be deported. Caleb will be in federal prison for conspiracy. And the police. He glanced at a senior officer who gave him a subtle nod. The police appreciate when I clean up the trash they can't reach. He pulled me into his arms. I buried my face in his chest, inhaling the scent of gunpowder and sandalwood. I cried, releasing all the terror of the last few days. He held me tight, one hand stroking my hair, the other pressing my back against him so firmly I couldn't tell where I ended and he began. Let's go home, he whispered. 1 year later. The sun was setting over the Pacific Ocean, casting a golden glow over the deck of the beach house in Malibu. I sat with my legs curled under me, reviewing the architectural blueprints for the new community center in Koreatown. It was my design, a fusion of modern aesthetics and traditional Hanok elements. It was the first legitimate project of Walker and Han development. You are frowning, a voice said. I looked up. Han Joon-Seok walked out onto the deck, carrying 2 glasses of iced tea. He wasn't wearing a suit. He was wearing linen pants and a simple white t-shirt. The scar on his wrist was visible, a reminder of the life he had partially left behind. He still ran the city, some things never changed, but the violence had stopped. The danger had receded. He operated in the shadows of the boardroom now, not the back alleys. I'm not frowning, I said, taking the tea. I'm concentrating. The roofline is tricky. You will figure it out, he said, sitting down next to me. You always do. He reached out and took my hand. On my finger, a simple gold band caught the light. We had married quietly 6 months ago. No press. No galas. Just us, Monica and June, standing as witnesses. Do you regret it? He asked suddenly. Regret what? The photo. The wrong number. The danger. All of it. I looked at him. I looked at the man who had burned down his own world to build a new one for me. I thought about Caleb, currently serving 10 years in a federal penitentiary. I thought about the fear I used to live with, the feeling of being small. And then I looked at the life I had now. A life where I was respected. Where I was loved fiercely. Where I was safe. No, I said softly. I don't regret a single thing. Han smiled, that rare, genuine smile that he saved only for me. He leaned in and kissed me, slow and sweet, with the sound of the ocean crashing below us. I love you, Jasmine Han, he whispered against my lips. I love you too, Joon-Seok. Some mistakes are tragedies. Some are lessons. But mine? My mistake was the best thing that ever happened to me. Because sometimes the wrong number leads you to exactly the right place. If you love this story, please hit that like button, leave a comment below with your thoughts on Jasmine and Han's journey, and don't forget to share this video. Thanks for watching.